emergency was that his high school sweetheart, the roommate was from Slidell, Louisiana, and he'd gone out with one girl his whole life, and his mom and his sister had been out at the movies, and they saw his high school sweetheart with one of his best friends, hanging out at the movies. And so he was like, he was heartbroken. And so he got back that was the emergency that his mom had to tell him. Because I guess they were going to get married eventually when he finished West Point, whatever. So he came back to the room, and he was so distraught. He never had taken, a drink or chewing tobacco in his life, and he grabbed my friend's tin of Copenhagen and put like a whole half a can in his mouth.
Oh no!
That was how he dealt with it. It was kind of like a funny response. I'll try and get the actual encounter. So I got really sick and was woozy and didn't know. He was just like totally distraught over this. He goes off to West Point 3 weeks later. His high school sweetheart is going out with his boyfriend. So anyway, that night, the person who's telling me this story, his name's also Dave, said he woke up at 3 a.m., had to go to the bathroom, went to the bathroom, comes back in the room, and he says, I've got the actual quotation, he said, I turned the lights off to go to bed, and as he comes back in the room, his buddy Matt was sleeping, but over the top of him was like this floating guardian angel kind of figure on her knees, kind of praying over him. That's what he said.
On her knees.
He said, I rubbed my eyes, I went back behind, they had, in the old barracks, they had these like partition walls, like a little privacy wall. I go back to bed, I look at it, then I come back around the wall and I look, and it was still there, and it was moving, and he said it was floating, it was moving, and then it looked at him, and his eyes were like glowing yellow, and he said, I couldn't sleep for like 3 weeks. He said, I was scared shitless for 3 weeks. He couldn't sleep. And then there's a account in the West Point magazine from an encounter in the same divisions back in 1973 where there was another figure who, it was also plebes again. So this is like first year cadets who are under a lot of trauma and stress. So, that could be a possible explanation. But they told this upperclassman, hey, there's a ghost in our room. And we can link up to the actual, first person account. I won't take too much more time on this. But the upperclassman said, okay, someone's messing with my plebe. Someone's playing pranks on them. So I'll tell one of them, you go sleep in my room, and I'll sleep in that bunk, and maybe we'll catch these guys who are playing these pranks on my plebes. So this was back in the late 60s, early 70s. This cadet who was the upperclassman was class of 73. So he graduated in 73. This probably happened in 72, 71. So he said he was waiting, he fell asleep, and then he woke up, it was freezing cold, and he felt something pushing down on his chest to where he couldn't move. He could see breath coming out of his mouth like on a freezing cold night. And not only was a hand like pushing him down, but it was inside of his chest. You could feel this cold hand inside of his chest. But he said he turned over on his side with great difficulty and saw this entity like leaning out of the wall, as if it's part of his lower body was still in the wall. And it had these hollow yellow eyes, and it was dressed in kind of like 1800s army uniform. And he said, I waved my hand in front of its face to see if it could see me, and it responded to me. And then I, with great effort, kind of hoarsely called over around this same privacy wall and said, hey, O'Connor, get over here. And the police came around the corner and said, yes, sir, that's him. And he said the thing that was most disturbing was it didn't have eyes. It had these hollow, glowing yellow sockets, which is similar to what my friend described, except this was a male figure instead of a female figure. But my buddy also described that it became freezing cold, and then also in that same barracks you could sometimes not open your door like something was messing with you. But anyway, so whatever it's worth, I do think that probably there are points on the planet's surface where maybe there's more activity. I don't know if West Point's one of those places geologically or geographically, or maybe just because of the amount of stress and or kind of energy that's. But if there's any place that would have that, I would guess that West Point would. Actually, when I was at Leavenworth, I was only there for like a 3-week course, but that's one of the oldest. It's in Missouri, actually. I guess your home state, right?
Blame
And some
him.
of those really old buildings there, they say, are so haunted that even
All right.
officers won't stay in them. So what they do is they cycle in, like when they have officers from another country, they put them in those barrack centers. I don't know why. But
That's funny.
yeah, so
Amazing stories. I'm so glad you had a couple. In that one article that you linked me to, in the sidebar, there was also a little blurb about them having a seance at West Point in 1972 where they invited a demonologist to lecture and then attempt to communicate with whatever entities were there. They didn't really say too much about the details of that, but apparently some movers right around that time heard a woman whispering in their ear and saw a woman's face in a basement window that a person couldn't really get into that window from that angle.